My entitled mother ruined Thanksgiving. So, this all started when my mom, Patricia, known to my husband Greg as Hurricane Patricia, decided to bombard me with phone calls about Thanksgiving. Not just one call. Not even 2. 4. In a single morning. It's like the second I agreed to host Thanksgiving at our place this year, I handed over the keys to my sanity, and she's been behind the wheel ever since. I mean, I love my mom, I really do, but she's one of those people who can turn a simple, casual holiday into an over-the-top event, as if she's producing a reality TV show. I'm talking full-on decorations, themed napkins, place cards for people who know exactly where they'll sit anyway, and way too much food. All of it has to be perfect, and by perfect, I mean exactly the way she envisions it. If it were up to me, we'd throw a turkey in the oven, set out some mashed potatoes, and call it a day. But no. Hosting Thanksgiving for my mom is like planning the opening ceremony of the Olympics. I should have seen this coming when I agreed to host. Last year, we had Thanksgiving at my cousin Katie's house, and Katie handled it like a pro. Katie knows exactly how to deal with my mom. She gives her tiny tasks busy work, really like making sure the napkins are folded just right or arranging the bread basket. Mom feels important, and meanwhile, Katie is free to actually run the show without interference. It's genius. But me? I wasn't born with that gift. I'm the type who gets steamrolled. The second my mom steps foot in my house, she takes over, and before I know it, I'm a guest at my own dinner. Greg, my husband, knows all of this. He's been with me long enough to have witnessed more than his fair share of my mom's performances. So when he sees her calling for the 4th time before a.m., he doesn't even try to hide his amusement. He looks at me from across the kitchen, barely suppressing a grin, and asks, "You gonna answer that, or are we pretending to be on a digital detox this morning?" I sigh and pick up the phone because let's be real, avoiding her isn't an option. She'll just keep calling until I either cave or she shows up at my doorstep. Neither scenario ends well for me. "Hey, Mom," I say, trying to sound like I haven't already mentally checked out. "Jamie, finally. I've been calling all morning," she exclaims, as if I've been dodging her for days. I note, "Sorry, been really busy with work." I lie, even though the most productive thing I've done all morning is finish my coffee and scroll through Instagram. "What's up?" "Well, I've been thinking about Thanksgiving," she starts, which is never a good sign. "You're not just doing turkey and mashed potatoes, are you?" I mean, that's so predictable. Predictable, right? Because everyone wants a surprise twist at Thanksgiving dinner. I thought the usual stuff would be fine. You know, turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, cranberry sauce, I say, hoping to shut this conversation down quickly. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. "Well, I've found this amazing recipe for cranberry glazed turkey," she says, her voice rising with excitement like she's revealing the secret to eternal youth. "I'll send it to you. You really should try it. And as for the stuffing, have you considered adding apples and sausage? It's so much more flavorful." Apples and sausage? In stuffing? What is this? A cooking show challenge? But before I can even respond, she's already moved on to her next point. "And about the house, Jamie, you're going to need to deep clean. I mean, really deep clean. We can't have people walking into a cluttered space, especially family. Deep clean. For family. Who knows me, knows my house, and doesn't care if a little dust exists on the bookshelf." I swear she's acting like we're hosting a royal banquet. "Mom, it's not that serious. It's just family coming over," I say, trying to downplay it. But I know I've already lost this battle. "Jamie, it's precisely because it's family that everything needs to be perfect. You don't want Aunt Susan complaining about dust again, do you?" she says, as if Aunt Susan, who has maybe mentioned dust once in her life, is about to write a scathing Yelp review of my home. "And the seating arrangements," she continues, as if this is something I've been neglecting all year. "Do you have enough chairs? You'll need extra chairs. I mean, your dining set is fine, but we don't want people crammed together. It'll ruin the flow of the room." "The flow of the room? For Thanksgiving?" I glance at Greg, who's now fully laughing under his breath, thoroughly entertained by the madness. "We have enough chairs, Mom," I say, but she's not convinced. Folding chairs don't count, she says dismissively. You need real chairs. Maybe you should rent some. Rent chairs? For Thanksgiving? At this point, I'm convinced I've lost touch with reality. Mom, we're not renting chairs for this, I say, trying to hold on to some sliver of sanity. Fine, but we'll need to figure out how to seat everyone comfortably. I can come by early and help you rearrange the furniture, she offers, which really isn't an offer at all. It's a promise that she'll be here at the crack of dawn, rearranging my entire house before I've even had my morning coffee. Great, I say, resigned to my fate. She rattles off a few more suggestions about floral arrangements, a potential dessert buffet because apparently one pie isn't enough, and lighting, yes, lighting, before finally letting me go. When I hang up, I feel like I've run a marathon and Thanksgiving isn't even here yet. I sink into the kitchen chair with a groan. Greg finally speaks, his eyes twinkling with amusement. She's already taken over, hasn't she? Already? She's practically planning a wedding reception. She's got cranberry glaze, seating charts, floral arrangements. She even suggested I rent extra chairs, I say, throwing my hands up in disbelief. He laughs, shaking his head. I told you this would happen. You should have just let Katie host again. I know, I groan. But it's too late now. She's got her claws in this thing, and there's no turning back. For a moment, we sit in silence, and I mentally replay the conversation with my mom. How did I let myself get roped into this? It's like I never learn. Every year, it's the same thing. My mom turns the holidays into her own personal reality show, and I'm stuck in the middle of it, trying to keep my sanity intact. Maybe it won't be so bad, Greg offers, half-heartedly. Oh, it'll be bad, I say with a hollow laugh. The real question is just how bad. So, as I was saying, my mom's turned Thanksgiving into a full-blown project, and I'm just a spectator. After the call, I sat there for a while, processing the absurdity of it all. Greg, still smirking, finally stopped pretending to work and walked over to where I was sitting. You know, he said, crossing his arms and leaning against the counter, you could always back out. Tell her something came up and we'll do a small thing here. Just the two of us. Oh, sure, I replied, rolling my eyes. You know how well that would go over. She'd probably show up with a turkey anyway, and guilt me into hosting at the last second. He chuckled, but we both knew I was right. My mom is like a force of nature. There's no stopping her once she's decided on something. Thanksgiving at my house was happening, whether I liked it or not. The following week, the phone calls continued. Every day it was something new. One day, she sent me a link to an article about setting the perfect Thanksgiving table. I clicked on it out of morbid curiosity, only to find that it suggested folding linen napkins into turkey shapes. Because of course, she would think that's a good idea. The next day, it was about centerpieces. She'd apparently already decided that I'd be putting out rustic floral arrangements made from fall leaves and mini pumpkins. I tried to push back on some of it. Like, why did we need an entire dessert buffet? We were only having about 12 people over, and I figured a couple of pies would be enough. But no. In my mom's world, Thanksgiving dessert needed to be an event. She rattled off a list of ideas: pumpkin pie, pecan pie, apple crisp, bread pudding, and some elaborate trifle I'd never heard of. Mom, that's way too much, I said, but she wouldn't hear it. Jamie, people like options, she replied. You don't want your guests feeling like they can't indulge, do you? I almost laughed. I'm pretty sure my family has never felt deprived at Thanksgiving. If anything, we always have too much food, and everyone ends up leaving with leftovers. But arguing with my mom is like trying to convince a brick wall to move. It just isn't happening. So I relented. Again. Greg found the whole thing hilarious, of course. He kept making jokes about how I should get a clipboard and start treating Thanksgiving like a military operation. You know, just embrace it, he said one evening, grinning at me over the dinner table. Get some walkie-talkies, assign people to different stations. You could have Uncle Joe on mashed potatoes duty, Aunt Susan on turkey basting, and your mom as the general overseeing the whole operation. Ha, ha, I said flatly, stabbing my fork into a salad. You're so funny. In truth though, the idea wasn't far off. My mom did act like she was running some kind of Thanksgiving boot camp. She had strong opinions on everything, from the timing of the dinner to who should bring what side dish. When I mentioned casually that maybe I'd just order some rolls from the bakery down the street, she acted like I'd committed a crime against the holiday. Store-bought rolls? She practically shrieked over the phone. Jamie, no. Homemade is always better. You don't want people thinking you didn't put in the effort. I resisted the urge to scream. Put in the effort? I was already bending over backward to make sure this meal met her insane expectations. But apparently, that wasn't enough. I had to make sure the rolls were homemade too. By the time Thanksgiving week rolled around, I was a wreck. My house was as clean as it had ever been thanks to 3 days of deep cleaning, courtesy of my mom's constant reminders. Every surface had been scrubbed, the fridge was stocked with more food than we could possibly eat, and I'd even rented extra chairs as per her request. They were currently stacked in the living room, taking up way too much space and serving as a constant reminder that I'd completely lost control of my own holiday. Greg had wisely stayed out of it for the most part. He'd help where needed, mostly with grocery runs and dealing with the furniture rearrangements my mom had insisted on, but he knew better than to get too involved. He'd been through enough of these holiday disasters to know when to step back and let the chaos unfold. The day before Thanksgiving, my mom showed up early. Really early. Like early. I'd barely had my coffee when she came bustling through the front door, armed with bags of groceries and a clipboard. Yes, an actual clipboard filled with notes. Greg, who had been peacefully enjoying his morning in front of the TV, glanced over at me with wide eyes. He looked like he was about to make a break for it. Don't even think about it, I whispered as he made a move to stand up. What? I was just going to nope. You're in this with me. He gave me a long-suffering look but stayed put. Meanwhile, my mom had already started unpacking her bags, making commentary as she went. I noticed you didn't have enough fresh herbs for the stuffing, so I brought some. And I picked up a few extra pie crusts, just in case. You can never have too many pie crusts. Too many pie crusts? I didn't even know that was a thing. But she wasn't finished. Oh, and Jamie, I was thinking about the seating arrangements. Maybe we should put Uncle Joe and Aunt Susan at the far end of the table. You know, since they don't get along with your cousin Sarah. I blinked at her, trying to process the fact that we were now arranging people like this was some high-stakes diplomatic meeting. Mom, it's just dinner. I think they'll be fine. She gave me a pointed look. Trust me, it's better this way. You don't want any drama. The irony of her trying to avoid drama while simultaneously creating it was completely lost on her. By midday, the house was in full Thanksgiving prep mode. My mom had taken over the kitchen, commandeering every available counter space. Pots and pans were everywhere, and the oven was already working overtime. I'd planned to take care of most of the cooking myself, but it quickly became clear that wasn't happening. My mom was in full control now, barking out orders like a general. Jamie, can you chop the celery for the stuffing? And Greg, would you mind peeling the potatoes? Oh, and don't forget to baste the turkey every 30 minutes. I could see Greg out of the corner of my eye, rolling his eyes as he peeled the potatoes. He caught my glance and mouthed, "I told you so." I shot him a look that said, "Don't even start." By the time the family started arriving in the early afternoon, I was already exhausted. The house smelled amazing, I'll give my mom that much. But I was barely holding it together. Every time I tried to relax for even a minute, my mom would find something else for me to do. It was as if she had an endless to-do list, and I was her personal assistant. Then, as people started filing in, my cousin Katie arrived. Now, Katie, as I've mentioned, is a pro at handling my mom. She walked in, surveyed the chaos, and immediately shot me a sympathetic look. "How's it going?" she whispered, giving me a hug. "Kill me," I whispered back. Katie laughed. I was wondering how long it would take before the clipboard came out. "She brought it out at 7 a.m., I said, deadpan. Katie shook her head. Classic Aunt Patricia. "Don't worry, I'll run interference for a bit." I could have kissed her right then. With Katie taking over, I managed to sneak away for a few minutes to decompress in the living room. Greg followed me, collapsing onto the couch with a heavy sigh. I feel like we're in a Thanksgiving boot camp, he said, rubbing his face. Oh, we are, I replied, sinking into the cushions beside him. This is Thanksgiving, Patricia edition.